Good to go.
Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of council. It is Wednesday, November the 13th, 2024, 6:30 PM, and I will call this meeting to order. Remind councilors of any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing none. This evening, we will be dealing with the 2025 to 2034 capital budget draft. And first up will be report TR 1424 by Lauren James, the treasurer, regarding the 2024-2034 capital budget. Mr. James.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. Before you is our draft budget capital for 2025 to 2034. It incorporates our asset management plan, our water financial plan, which council is well aware of in the summer. It includes our roads need study, our bridge and culvert study, facility audit, as well as our storm sewer assessment.
Just before you carry on, Councillor Chilcott, can you hear the treasurer? Okay.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Want to make sure you're broadcasting.
Okay. Like typical 10-year capital budgets, very consistent in how we structured it compared to the prior years. One caveat is we're not be looking for this approved in principle with the complete bylaw until after March of 2025 due to project HMCS Ojibwa's debt renewal, debt call, debt elimination, or whatever council may choose. We opened up the budget consultation period in April. We had to go to August 31st. We continued additional stuff until September 27th. We have received additional stuff since then, and we're still taking comments for the operating budget as well up until November 29th. And generally in the past, we'll also add additional comments right up until meeting comments coming from the public. So I do encourage residents that they still have comments for operating, and they can still put comments in for the capital. That can still be amended in later for further discussion if they wish. As you see tonight, we're having the meeting on November 13th, and the operating budget meeting will happen later, most likely in the middle to end of March after we do the debt. Generally, the budget focuses on trying to preserve assets in core life, as well as replacement value, and also trying to keep things moving inflationary. Biggest takeaways with this year's capital budget, it's has a $506,000 increase over 24. Again, that is due to a substantial large wedge payment on the debt for project going to reserve. Couple notes of highlight. We had reductions in OSIP this year. And the provinces has paused the phase-in of the MPAC assessment book. Outside of that, we try to keep the consistent increase in the program, high utilization of the gas tax and the OSIP accounts, and trying to plan debt or other instruments for big capital projects, as you guys will see in 10-year plan. Our main culprit in our asset management deficiency is our stormwater plan. We need substantial rehabilitation, replacement, close to almost $60 million. This does not include the $50 million projected for the Port secondary system water line. So we will be discussing later tonight about some grant opportunities that came about late last Friday, potentially for one of the two projects or both. Beyond that, it considers this project in this capital plan considers asset life cycle replacement, betterments, rehabs, and generally focuses on a finite information in the first couple of years, and then a broader scope of assets replacement and rehab in the back half. So truthfully, we're looking at tonight everything in 25 and potentially the odd project or two in 26 that potentially has to be tendered, procured, or set up in 25 for delivery in 26. How we're structured our tax levy in our 10-year forecast, 2.4, 3.2, up to as high as 5.4, down to 1.1 million. So as you see, there is some smoothing to still happen. Some projects will move in, move out, and as we get closer to those years, they come in more in tune, more in focus. Other than that, there is a couple other notes to incorporate. The first one is any projects that are not complete in calendar 2024 capital that have carried over into our 2025 capital. If at the end of 2024, the project is not fully spent, it's allocated funding, either reserve or levy, that leftover amount will then be reserved and used for next year's remaining of that capital project. So for instance, development studies. We have it in 24 and 25. It was projected to use 35,000 in 24. It's again has a number in 25. Whatever funding is remaining, that would come forward on the Q4 report in February, and direction from council to reserve that money to bring down the levy or the reserve transfer in next year's revised capital once we're done the year end. So I know that's been a question raised by a handful of residents and how there's some overlap. I would gladly yield any questions from council if they want me to simplify the mechanics of that.
Okay, just pause right there for a moment, Lauren, please. And I open it up to council. Do you have any questions on that particular mechanism? What he's trying to explain? Anybody? You talked about and used the development charges study as one.
Development charges in 2024. It is $35,000 number. It will not be complete in 24. There will be hangover or rollover work. So whatever that we do not spend in that envelope will then come back in the Q4 report as the variance or underspent. And then staff would be looking for council direction to reserve that to then fund the carryover expense in 25. So there's about 4 or 5 items in the 25 budget that might not be levy dependent next year. There might be a portion of levy and reserve dependent. It all depends on how much is remaining in the basket of unused funds for each of those projects.
All right. So essentially what you're trying to explain is that there is no double dipping or
Correct.
funding particular projects.
The reason why several of these projects have a carryover in 25 is some of them aren't going to be able to complete their work in 24.
All right.
So they'll still carry over, and rather having an unfunded capital next year, it has to still be shown.
Thank you. Okay. Does that make it clear for everyone? Okay. Seeing no questions. Carry on.
That brings us to the end of the staff report. I'm going to let the CAO speak to the comments from the public, and then after that, we can get into each of the functional departments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Before we get into the comments, just a couple of notes regarding 2024 capital budget resolutions. There were 2 that council has made directing various items towards capital budget deliberations. One of them is identified in the staff report. That being that discussions around the playground equipment at the East Beach be deferred to the capital budget deliberations, so we can discuss that when we are discussing Parks and Rec and facilities. The same would apply to a motion from the last council meeting regarding the updated risk assessment at the East Beach and the applicable capital items. This would also have to be discussed during the Parks and Rec discussion. With respect to the comments that were received, most of the comments that were received prior to the comment cutoff being September 27th. One was received after this point in time and has been included in the report, and it is identified in the consultation results. Going through the results, there are some comments about playground at the East Beach Memorial Park sent in by Mr. Mike Emberson. This is currently included in our capital budget. However, further discussion has been referred to this meeting to either retain it in the item or to remove it from the item. Marnie Wolf sent in a number of comments specifically to whether a special area rate could be applied to the cistern given broader community benefit. Staff's response is that a special area rate study is not economical for such a small item. A rate study for something like that would be $40,000 to $60,000 for an item that's $129,000. It really isn't economical to apply a SAR to that. For PR02, the playground at the East Beach. So this again is referred to the current budget discussions. PR12, that the pavilion be removed and funds be directed to lighthouse rehabilitation. So at this point in time, no direction has been given to remove this item. Council, however, when we get to that item, may provide that direction. For PR13, seeking out other opportunities for accessibility or mobility options at the East Beach. This is currently in the budget and it's grant dependent, so no revenue or levy or reserve sourced funds are allocated to this at this time. This also did come up during the risk assessment discussion last week, and there are concerns about certain options and either liability attached to it or how it would dovetail with the dynamic nature of our beach. And for FA05, regarding an alternative location, so this isn't something that council may also provide direction on and hasn't to date, but when we get to that item, if council would like to alter the item, council may do so. For FA09, there's a consideration given to include a kiosk and storage for potentially amphibious wheelchairs and other items for the beach. So no inclusion of additional functions as it is considered at this time. However, what we do expect is that when we get into really looking at the design of an East Beach washroom expansion, we'll be seeking comment from the Waterfront Advisory Committee. And the last one is that council consider making further improvements to the Port Burwell Community Park to offer visitors alternative space and recreation in Port Burwell. No additional enhancements outside of capital item PR05 has been considered to date. Ms. Denise Kennedy, she is requesting a pavilion in the Eden Community Park, or at least some trees. So the pavilion item is PR09. This has been shifted in the draft budget from 25 to 27 to reduce the levy support necessary for the entire 2025 capital portfolio. Council has provided direction to staff for a no more than a 6% increase. So deferring this item will decrease that levy impact and will provide council and staff a little bit more leeway when it comes to potential operational impacts that will come back to council in 2025. Wendy Carmichael provided some commentary regarding the lighthouse and the retirement of the Ojibwa debt. To reiterate, no decision has been made on the lighthouse to date. It is in our budget as a 2025 item. However, an approach to the lighthouse has not yet been determined. And council has identified a primary priority to retire the Ojibwa debt. And at this time, pending other direction, that is the direction that staff will continue with respect to information. Laura Edwards is requesting a social media presence. This has been something that staff have been working towards this year, and council has directed a policy return to council. We anticipate that Q4 2024 or at the very latest early 2025. We had a couple comments again about a pavilion in Eden, again scheduled for 2027, or about a pickleball and tennis court at the Eden Community Park. And at this point in time, we don't have any plans for those nor items identified for those in the capital budget. We did have a couple comments come in about a flashing light system in front of the Stratfordville Public School. This is something that has come up previously and that council has previously deliberated. So Plank Road being a county road, any improvements would be a county expense, or it would be something that the municipality would have to take on in whole. We had originally planned to look into this more in depth in 2024, but due to some tax levy impacts, the sidewalk item in 2024 got pushed off until 2025. Based upon previous discussion and in consultation with the manager of Public Works, the traffic figures in front of the public school simply do not justify additional safety measures at this time under the Ontario Traffic Manual. However, if council wishes for staff to further investigate that in 2025, we can take direction on that. We did receive some comments about the bathroom addition. These are the comments that came in after the formal comment period had ended. So FA09 is a 26 and 28 item, design and then construction work in 26. And again, it's anticipated that specific input will be sought from the Waterfront Advisory Committee regarding the design when we are at that point of getting into the design work. Finally, we received some comments from Rose Buke. To draw attention to the staff comments, the current budget has many items that approve park space and open space, PR 02, 05, 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, FA 9, and FA 15. To clarify some of the comments, the municipality did not acquire the Ojibwa. It is not our asset. We only service the debt on this matter. FA 15, which is the SCC expansion item, does not consider debt utilization and never has. So at this point in time, it's strictly reserve and or grant. With respect to the ball diamonds, there was a comment about divestiture, and council has chosen to not proceed with any investigation of municipal ball diamond surplus. The East Beach washroom again, that's included FA 09, it's 26 and 28 item. It's worth noting that consideration for additional municipal lands for development, this was something that came up about a question of where it originated from. This stemmed from a councilor motion, and if further investigated, may have resulted in additional residential development. And to reiterate, the Ann Street properties that are currently listed for sale are not and never were allocated by the municipality for park space. So with that, Mr. Mayor, those are the comments that were received during the consultation period and the resolutions that council's made in 2024 in regards to capital. If there are any questions at this time, myself and senior staff are available to answer those. And if not, then I will defer back to Treasurer James to walk you through the capital budget.
All right, thank you, Thomas, for those for the report on the comments for the budget period. Does anyone have any questions? Any clarification needed?
Mr. Mayor, are
Councilor
comments
Robinson?
okay?
Pardon me?
Are comments okay?
Yeah.
It seems to be a lot of interest and there is a lot of growth happening in Eden. Is some interest in maybe doing something in the meantime before the pavilion, like some parks and benches or something, would probably be a good idea.
Good comment. And yeah, I think that when we get to the parks and rec area, that's something we should consider. Benches is one thing. There isn't a lot of shade in that particular part as well. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Any other comments and or, but again, we'll discuss that when we get to Parks and Rec. Okay. Counselor Chilcott, you're all right?
I'm waiting to discuss Parks and Rec.
All right, that sounds good. All right then, Lauren, you're up.
All right, your worship, let's look at the 2025 capital summary sheet, which will be number 3 on your PDF. It'll say Municipality Band 2025 capital summary sheet. Just basically an overview of this. In 2025, we're projecting to do $9.2 million of capital expenditures, procurements, and transfers. Of this, you have 1.5 million. 5.2 million is grants. 20,000 will be from other, which is basically disposal of asset. And your tax levy component is just under 2.4 million. Moving on to that, let's get into the functional areas of the applicable departments.
Should we pause? Or this is just a summary?
That's just
So
the summary. That's just an overview,
okay.
guys.
Let's go in then to this general government next, right?
Yep. So we're gonna look at the general government 2025 summary sheet. Basically, it's primarily made up of transfers, continuation of the DC study, and as I alluded to in the opening, any remaining money in the DC study work in 24 that's not spent will be reserved and put towards that in 25. But as you see, both the DC study in 24 and 25 were reserve dependent, not tax levy dependent. So that will have a non-impact on the tax levy.
Great.
We've got some Office 365 updates, requirement of technology coming to end of life, some council chamber updates, and then we have our guarantorship loan transfer of 1.1 million. We are projecting to use the entire reserve transfer of 3.5 million, the guarantorship loan, towards either the wedge, substantial down payment, or termination of the debt. In essence, that is the general government for the year. 3 transfers, some IT upgrades, and the Ojibwe transfer.
Okay, are there any questions from council members? On your PDF, are you up on the PDF side?
14
Page 14 on the PDF.
for everyone keeping track at home.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question on process. Are we looking at the CISs, like, are we looking at the capital information sheets at this point? And can we ask questions about other years, or are we just looking at 2025 right now?
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor, let's look at each functional sheet for 25. Generally, the 26 to 34 years are there to give council an idea. If there is a worksheet item that you guys would like brought forward or have clarification, once we finish the year 25, let's come back, and if anyone has questions on 26 or the applicable years, we'll bring them up as council sees fit. That seem fair?
That work for you, Deputy?
Okay, yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So is now the time I ask my questions about 2025
Yes,
Yes.
under general government?
yes.
Okay, then, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, under, the GGO6, upgrades to municipal IT infrastructure and security measures, I just curious as to what that entails, what's included, and the anticipated implementation of that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can answer some of that, and I'll also, if I have to, put the clerk on the spot since she's been working with Stronghold on some of this implementation too. So essentially, Office 365 implementation would align us with other municipalities such as Elgin County and Central Elgin that have previously installed Office 365 as security upgrades. We do now have a cyber insurance rider under our insurance, and they've recommended certain upgrades to provide for additional stability and service delivery in IT. And one of those is 365 and certain security upgrades to our system that provide other barriers to protect against intrusion and that sort of thing. That's what the item addresses, and then it addresses items from our insurer as well. The clerk has been in discussion with Stronghold about implementation, and the numbers provided in the budget have been provided by our IT company. And we'd be starting implementation likely late Q1 of 2025 with the intent of having the majority of the changeover done in the 2025 calendar year.
All right, clarification. If we are talking about GG06, the 25,000 in the summary, you go to the worksheet, it's 15,000.
Yeah, there was a discrepancy.
The summary is correct.
Worksheet's wrong?
That's correct.
That's what you were drawing attention to, Deputy Mayor? All right, thank you.
And thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just, and also for the clarification too. I appreciate that. And supplementary,
Yes.
and the GG07, the upgrade to chamber microphones. Please tell me that there'll be a complete review of the sound system at the same time. We've had nothing, we've had some implementation problems with the sound system here, and I would hope that we're looking at more than just microphones.
So I'll defer this one to the clerk to respond to. My understanding is that the primary item here is the microphones because of their age and because they do not capture sound from about 6 inches out and back. So we'd be moving to an upgraded mic system that is more sensitive when it comes to sound and provides a better overall experience for listeners on Zoom. I'll defer to the clerk to provide some additional context.
Through your worship. So we have had an on-site consultation with a company that came and assessed, or yeah, I should say an assessment to give us some ideas of what we can improve and what we have that works well. And so that was the number one item, was to upgrade the microphones. And I guess in the tech world of the microphones, if you go the route that they are recommending, we have a lot of opportunity of other things to do with them versus if we try to just do something that's a little bit more cost effective, because then we're just going to be behind after a year anyway. So I agree with what they're proposing because it sets us up for future things. There's lots of opportunity with the way that the microphones work with different muting abilities, just clearer sound if somebody's leaning back, all of those things. So, and there's other upgrades that could happen as well, but we wanted to start with that as the first go.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Anything else on the general government from you, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll leave that to the end because it's not in the 2025 year.
All right.
So we'll come back to that.
Any other member of council on general government? Are there any issues or items that they have any questions with? Thank you. Let's move on then.
So we'll move to fire 2025. 25 on the page 25 on the PDF. Everyone's there? Okay, so we have the bunker gear for 14K, SCBA replacement for 210 in 25, radio reserve for 30. The cistern, which was a 24 reserve item, which will be back in there for 25 because it didn't happen in 24, so it's a non-levy impact. So I know that was an item brought up by a couple of residents about repetition. There's reason. The fire equipment transfer for 100K, thermal imaging cameras for 7,000, portable radios for 6. And as you see, we have our fire equipment reserve balance of 222, 399. Any items of concern or thoughts from council on fire 25?
What page are we on?
On the report or on the
Well, I just can't, he said 15, but
15 PDF, but when you put the report with it as well, there's what, 10 pages on it, on the report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, if you are looking on your agenda, be page 36 would be your fire 2025.
thank you.
Okay, that's the summary for the 10 years. And then so 37. Page 37. Okay, does anyone have any questions on fire? So the bunker gear is a multi-year, basic.
It's okay.
I beat you to it.
It's all good. I'll go after.
Okay, just, yes, multi-year. Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll apologize in advance. Chief, I'm gonna pepper you with some questions. The FDO2, the portable radios, then it goes along with my apologies, I gotta flip ahead. The FD10. They're both radio, like communication equipment with Elgin County versus local radio equipment. Can you just explain the breakdown of the difference? Because there's a significant cost difference with Elgin County compared to the local multi-year project.
Thank you, through your worship. Worship, the multi-year $30,000 was a, part of a plan to basically, renovate our system for the county. Every municipality in the county has an equal share in this radio system. This was an agreement made back, I believe, in 2014, I believe. It is getting old. We just made a presentation to the county council on Tuesday with regards to looking at how best to restructure the replacement of this system. It's going to be either one of two ways. One is going to be piecemealing it together. Problem is that when it was first designed, we had extra parts. We had ample. It was modern equipment. Only 10 years later, technology changes, and we've already used we have very little parts. In fact, we just got told today that they had to borrow an amplifier from another municipality on their system to replace ours because they cannot get our system anymore. The parts are obsolete. So we know we are getting into a desperate situation, and we have to come up with the best way, most cost efficient way to come up with a radio system. And it was agreed. I believe I brought a report to council, and the report suggested that we put $30,000 a year to start to reserve because this is going to have to be replaced sooner or later. With regards to the portable radios, those are for local use. Again, our radios, we use I still have some of the 6500s, which are totally obsolete. I will not be able to get any parts for them. If one goes down, it's basically going to be thrown in the garbage.
Mm.
I have 7500s, and as of January this year, they are no longer making the 7500, and they're going to be moving me into a newer portable radio. I can still use them, and I am still using them, but I'm also looking forward to in that capital project of replacing them solely.
Supplementary. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So are the portable radios that we're replacing locally, are they going to be compatible with the system that we're eventually going to have to hook into with Elgin County?
It will have to be that way because everybody else in Elgin County is using the exact same portable radios.
Okay.
So it's not that I'm venturing out.
Mm.
In fact, last year I did purchase some portable radios. I went to another company other than Motorola, but I had to make sure that they were compatible with our system.
Okay.
And we're also talking with our system with regards to our dispatch, which is out of Tilsonburg.
Shall I just keep going?
Keep going, please.
Okay, so FDO3, the thermal imaging cameras. Just a question about that. We should have 5. We only have 3. I'm just curious as to how often are we using them at every single fire call
We are going,
in terms of a fire, that is?
we're going to be using them more and more.
Mhm.
I was at a gentleman who is very knowledgeable in our lithium ion batteries. And what he suggested that every time we attend a fire, that there's even consideration of lithium ion batteries, that we should have the firefighters that are approaching it having a gas monitor on it, and the firefighter backup, the supervisor that's overseeing them to have their own thermal imaging camera. What is happening is they have found through studies is that just before they go into thermal runaway, they give off a large quantity of CO gas, which should be picked up on your monitor, but they will also give a thermal imaging disruption. So you'll be able to pick that up on the prior to you see it by the naked eye.
Hmm.
And so these digital cameras are definitely worth their value. Everybody in a fire, at least in the group, should have a thermal imaging camera with them. I can assure you that the models that we have were very expensive. They were twice of what I've just asked for here. We are going to go to a slightly different model, bring it down to possibly more reasonable. But again, the other problem is, you may think that we're going up to 5. However, ours are 14 years old. And I've already had to replace one screen on it, and that screen cost us $1,800. This whole unit costs 7,000, and I'm not guaranteeing how many parts within that unit are gonna go next. It's imperative that I start to replace these.
For FDO 5, we call them is it
SCBA's.
SCBA,
Self-containing
yeah.
breathing apparatus.
the skibas or whatever they call it. The existing units that we have on site at this time, how old are they?
They were from the G8, G20. So that 2010.
2010.
The bottles themselves, are useful for 15 years and then they must be replaced. That is by law. You cannot use a composite bottle more than 15 years. The packs, they can be continued. However, our packs are no longer serviced. They are obsolete. Again, I just, as of Monday, was passed on a new, NFPA, standard that's coming out next year. That is going to, mean that the packs are going to have to be more robust than what they are right now. With more, technological abilities in them, which means they're gonna be costing more. So, but they are gonna give us a slight way for us to purchase within 2025, and we'll see about 2026 as far as how we can get them in. I will be it's my intention that in the past I've asked for quotes to give us this amount for the budget, and I've received them. But since we need to get really serious, I'm going to be putting on an RFP sometime in the early in the new year so we can get an actual price on these, and we will find out how the competitive nature of this business is. I can also tell you that I've had in the last month 2 masts break. It's because the rubber's wearing down. And I was fortunate that I ran up to Tilsburg, who used to use these masts. I grabbed 3 of them because they were just going to be thrown out. And I was able to find out from our supplier, from another fire department, he was able to grab me about a half dozen more. So that may get us to the end. As I said, they've all of a sudden started to break down. Again, these things have been in fire, they've been heated, they've been cooled, and the rubber's just breaking down up to the time period.
With the amount because we need so many, have we had any discussions with the county with a mass procurement across the board or?
It's, we're talking the pack, the entire pack.
Right.
Pack, bottles, everything. And of course, Your Worship, I've had the ability to talk with the chiefs. I was just had a meeting with the other day. The problem is none of us are on the same cycle program. They're not in need of them.
It's unfortunate.
It is. However, I do have a fairly good reputation with most of our vendors. And if I can go, not within our own county, but if I can go outside to another fire department within the province, I will. And so we can do a bulk order. And they have been fairly reasonable with that type of purchasing. I know that they did that with, I believe Waterloo had a big purchase come in. And so other fire departments were allowed to jump in the Waterloo agreement. So we're looking for how to save cost measures to the municipality any way I can.
And just a final question through you, Mr. Mayor. And I think it's just a clarification on how it's structured is FD 11. I thought that piece was part of the ISIP. I'm just curious as to why it's in the budget for fire. The cistern.
Go for it, Thomas.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. This item has been a separate item for, I think this is the second or third capital budget. It's been broken out. And it's been broken out because of broader community benefit that applies to a fire cistern. The intent is that it would be used as fire protection for the SCC, but also since it's external and it would have a dry hydrant, it would provide broader fire protection to North Bayham, which, as you know, does not have access to municipal water.
We discussed in a prior budget cycle that this would be moving forward either way, correct?
This is already reserved,
It's, okay.
okay?
I just want to make sure I understand it correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not levy dependent.
Okay,
We already collected for it, is what I'm trying to say.
all right. Yeah,
All right.
thank you. All right. I'm done. Sorry.
Okay, not a problem. Just, when you have any questions, you'll ask them. Anyone else have any questions on the fire capital?
Oh, wait, I forgot one. Oh, no, I didn't. It was already answered.
We do know that, protective services equipment are, fairly pricey. Anything that can be done, you know, you mentioned a couple of, strategies, chief, so applaud you for that.
Like I said, the chiefs, we meet regularly. Usually almost every month now. There's either a chiefs meeting or a senior officer meeting. And we're forever talking about strategies on how to best. And a good example would be the purchasing of our tanker.
Yeah.
With the two other municipalities.
Mhm.
So we're trying to come up with the best strategy we can to get the best deal for every municipality.
Thank you. Returning to the countywide, communications, I assume it will either be you or someone will be bringing forward a report to this council, regarding the, a potential working group being established in order to, navigate our way through solving that problem.
We just spoke about that again today at today's chiefs meeting. And what we're waiting for is direction from council or from the county council to, from the clerk to see how that was actually worded. So we know how we can best proceed forward going forward. The idea was that there will be representative from the county, representative from local, and also representatives from the county fire chiefs. So how we're actually gonna structure that is gonna be up to a report coming in the future.
Thank you for that. Stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, chief. Carry on, Mr. James.
So we're done with fire in 26. Anything else in fire in the future years we can discuss after we finish off the other functional departments. So let's move to 47 or 46 for some of you. Building 25, there's no capital items. The only thing that's transpiring in building is replacement of the truck in 27. That's it. Let's go to Public Works on 57 or 58, depending which version you have. So under our Public Works, we have the tunnel line culvert removal for 460,000, which is funded off our road construction reserve. And we have our tandem, which council has already authorized for procurement. Elliott Road, a gravel program for 215, and Carson Line for 150. Our other programs for the year include sidewalks, road signs, guardrails, roads need study, which will be removed. I was just informed tonight by the manager of Public Works that the roads need study will be done at the end of calendar 24. So that 55K will come off the tax levy, and working sheet PW 107 will not be applicable in 2025. Roadside brushing program, which is an annual program, continues. The hill management program, which is an annual program. The Lakeshore Line study, which is still ongoing, and the Port Royal Stormwater Phase 1C, which is here as a placeholder until council comes back with the staff report on the direction of how we're going to be doing the stormwater program. And our machine time is a functional requirement of accounting treatment.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions on the Public Works? Deputy Mayor, thank you.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. A couple questions for Steve, if I may. The roads, the PW08 for the road sign replacement, I'm just curious as to if we have any estimates on how much we've spent for sign replacement and repairs in 2024?
Through your worship. Yes, actually, to date, we've done really well this year on sign replacement. The reflectivity has been done. We didn't utilize a third party, or I shouldn't say, we didn't utilize a contractor, Malahide, took it back. So, to date, I can't tell you what that cost, but I'm not sure if we're even gonna get billed for that at this point, but it's very minimal. So, we did add 20,000 last year to that. All right. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong. I'm thinking operating.
good.
If that's what you're after, like,
I just, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just noticed that this year is coming
Yes.
up, we've 7,500, but then following years, we're back up to 9,000. So I just wondered, how are we doing this year and is there carryover?
yeah, sorry about that. I was blending
okay.
a little bit of operational, but yes, generally the signs do come from reflectivity
Right.
for this project. This year, we used $1,500 for sign replacement out of this line. Inflation was why we originally did that. Every year, this seems to fluctuate quite a bit. However, this year was very, very low. So this is great. There is some funding, but we have replaced other signs through the municipality utilizing this outside our operating. But I'm projecting that there is gonna be, probably 5,000 left in that line this year.
Great.
Just to that point, with the vandalism that occurred early last winter, the replacement costs, were those insurable? Or did you recover those?
So
signs?
you're talking about the large, yes. To date, we have not heard. As of right now, that came out of operational costs.
That came out of operating.
That's right. I didn't push him on this because I wasn't aware at the time what a reflectivity would come. As an update, I guess, talking to the OPP, that's still in the court.
Wow.
So we're hoping to, we did invoice appropriate to the court or to the OPP, and they're hoping to bring that invoice forward with the costing. So,
All right. Thank you. for
with
that.
any luck.
Deputy Mayor, additional questions?
I do. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, there's so many pages in your capital info sheets. I know it's in here somewhere. I'm just trying to find the exact one, but in reference to PW09 with the guardrail replacement, I know it's based on the study. But does it identify, like, when do we do that review? Is it every 5 years?
Guardrail,
The guardrail?
they're the only
Safety.
time, the roads needs study has identified it in the past. So
That's what
this, unfortunately, the roads need study will be coming after this meeting.
Right.
And obviously next year, there's gonna be a lot more changes you'll find to this. However, if any new guardrail systems are identified, then we would utilize this. And this may be coming forward in the new year after the roads need study for the following year. However, $10,000 is that's enough to do about 10 meters of guardrails.
right?
As the
Okay.
new standards, we can't put post and cables, we have to put steel, so the cost is huge. I'm sure council, if it's anything major, they're gonna have to see it before them as a tendering process and funding process, so. This I try to hang on to for non-billable, insurance claims we can't get back. Because we just don't know about if somebody hits our system.
Gotcha.
So we have a little bit of buffer because the operating does not hold next to anything to repair guardrails at this point, so.
So the supplementary, so that segues perfectly into my next question then, because how do we measure the priority of the replacement and where? And is it industry standard or is it just local inspection that's determining?
Yeah, through your worship, we technically, all guardrail systems are inspected throughout the year.
By
ident-
you?
Yes, by
Yes,
staff,
okay.
internal staff.
Mhm.
We identify any minor repairs. As long as the county does 4 inspections a year also on the county roads, so that also comes out of our not as our capital, but out of our operational, so we try to blend that together, however. Steel guardrail the lifespan for a steel guardrail is 75 years. Wooden
Once and done.
post systems. At this point, there's no, they're still out there and they're not suggesting replacing them before end of life. So internal staff usually replace them as needed, so. It's, we can go and start replacing all our post and cables on our back roads, but at this point, there's no standard that we actually have to do this.
Okay.
If it's a new replacement, then we have to utilize the new specs and you'll get the steel rail instead of the post and cable.
And final supplementary on that point, then the 10,000 that's in the budget is then for immediate repair then. It's not we haven't identified
No.
specific areas.
Staff
Okay.
in the past have hung on to that throughout the year for emergency repairs.
Got it.
Ideally, it'd be nice to have a larger budget within the operating. However, this has actually worked well if there was an overrun from, we can't collect insurance claims back on the repairs that we do.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you very much. I'm good.
You're good?
Keep going. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So PW 21, the Storm Sewer Master Plan Phase 1C. We know it's grant dependent. Please tell me we have plans to put that grant application in.
Yeah, I don't know if Thomas wants to take this one or.
I would just clarify what grant application. It's a grant dependent project and it's included because we are continuing to do work with the engineer on file, Spreed Associates, on some of the pre-engineering. There is potentially a draft capital item that council may want to consider, including in the budget from reserves to allocate some more money to pre-engineering with Spreeds on this file. But as council is aware that we applied for the second round of the DMAF intake and we were not successful with that. Having this item is essentially a placeholder in case there's a grant opportunity that does come up that we can apply for early in 25 that we might be able to receive in 2025 that will allow us to start some of the work. There is a grant opportunity that was circulated around to council earlier today. I believe it's called the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund. It's a federal grant program. And the other draft capital item that was also provided to council and can be added to the budget as well. I believe it's PW 135. It's about $85,000 for a climate risk assessment. And the reason why this is included in the budget is because in discussion with federal granting authorities, they're increasingly looking for these risk assessments to be included in core infrastructure grant programs. There was a grant program that we were looking at in the fall and we weren't able to make application to it because we do not have one of these on the shelf that we can utilize for stormwater purposes, for instance. So again, just to, I guess, summarize what I've said, there's a couple of other draft capital items that we can put into the budget should council wish to direct those. That would provide us with a little more ammunition for some of these large federal grant programs for core infrastructure. And the item PW 21 is essentially a placeholder in case something comes up in the short term that we can utilize in 25.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, again, just to clarify, you don't get a grant. This isn't happening.
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. The applications that we have made in the past for this, the paperwork is up to date? Like, are we shovel ready to make an application should a grant come forward?
We're not considered shovel ready because the engineering has not been done on any of the remaining phases.
So just to clarify, these are two additional items that you wish to present tonight to get us to that
To
spot.
that point.
It
Gotcha.
gets us closer. It doesn't get us directly to it.
No.
Depending on how things go, and we might have to come back to council later for authorization to utilize further reserves for actual engineering design work for phases 1C and 1D should we get to that point in time. The pre-engineering work is to revise cost estimates and potentially rescope some of the phases to make them more palatable in the face of inflation over the last 4 years.
So in the meantime, this is just a placeholder.
Yeah.
Should the stars align, so to speak? Okay, everyone's good on that one? Anything additional from Public Works for you?
Yep,
Yep,
I do.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. PW 25, the tandem replacement. It has a projected cost of 540. I'm just curious. We've seen this in other departments where we've been grossly under budgeted. What are your projections for that? Are we online for the 540K?
Yeah, through your worship, our suppliers for our plow equipment have stabilized
Okay.
dramatically.
Mhm.
I keep in touch with the sales rep, I guess, of our tandems as we got one being built currently. And right now, they're not projecting any change, obviously, with new government coming into the States. It was brought up a couple weeks ago
Mhm.
that, you know, importing of steels and stuff and what's gonna happen that way will be unpredictable. However, they were certain, at this point, with our current price and budget, that it should be plenty to until it's time. So,
And on the breakdown where it says other for 20,000, can you just explain what that is?
other, oh,
Thank you. Okay, so that's the money back for potential. Got it. Thank you for that. Sorry. I think I had one more of it. Put more sticky notes. Okay. PW 33, the Lakeshore Line Study. It's a $35,000 placeholder. I'm just wondering if this is required by legislature and what the objective is of this study.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, this is an update of the previous in-depth study that would have been done in 2018 before the portion of Lakeshore Line between 55 and Clark Road was formally closed. Given that dynamic erosion continues along Lakeshore Line, and this includes some substantial bank failures in and around the last 3 years, it's time that the study be updated. So these funds would then be allocated in the budget for us to proceed with an update of that study.
Supplementary.
Mhm.
It's I don't misunderstand what I'm gonna ask. But I'm gonna ask it. What's the value of having that?
The value of having that is along Lakeshore Line, and not only along that stretch, but further west towards Port Burwell as well, where erosion does continue. There are private residences and municipal infrastructure, i.e. Lakeshore Line, and the municipality is required, if it knows that there is a potential threat to public safety, being dynamic erosion, that has to be monitored. Given that the last study was done in 2018, this will be about 7 years ago. It is recommended that we update the study for the existing context.
Okay.
No?
Supplementary.
Yep.
I'm gonna go in. So when the study comes back and identifies additional potential liabilities, what position does that put us in?
2017, 2018, potentially. I won't go into any further detail. A lot of that just was discussed in close at that time. And if it's a liability issue and it's requires solicitor client privilege, that's a closed matter.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Steve.
yield the floor to anyone else.
Sorry. Yeah, we're good.
Anyone else have any questions on the proposed public works capital expenditures? Thank you, Steve. So we're moving on with water.
Moving to 69 and 68, just so council is aware, all the items in the water capital and the water wastewater have already been approved by council in the water and the wastewater study. So any questions are for Spirit,
Spirit.
because you've already approved it.
Right,
But don't refrain because the manager of,
right.
yeah, water, wastewater.
The spirit is here.
Yes, the Spirit is here.
100%.
Okay, you have some questions, for
Just
water?
one,
One.
I promise,
Spirited
one.
question.
Thank you. So, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Under, WWO1, replacement of wastewater system elements. I'm pretty sure that you've explained this to me once before, Ed, but I'm gonna ask it again. What does system elements include?
We're on water.
Yeah, we're still on water,
We're on water.
Am I on
Deputy
waste?
Mayor. You're-
Oh, I apologize. I jumped ahead.
but there wasn't anything underwater in 25.
So.
No, there
There's
is
nothing in 25, there's nothing in 26. 27 has a pickup and a vac.
Right.
The rest is, again, water lines and the water line replacement on Nova Scotia.
Mhm.
And again, all these things are stuff that you guys have already approved in the water rate study. If we're done with water, we can go to wastewater, which is 79 and 80 on the PDF. Now your question would be.
Now, sorry, that would be my question. Under wastewater, my apologies.
Your worship, to the deputy mayor, system equipment for wastewater. I guess we all need to keep in mind that the wastewater system is highly mechanical. And it's, some of the components of wastewater are predictable, when they need to be replaced and end of life. However, there are a lot of other, pieces of equipment or components that, that do come up from time to time. And this is simply a placeholder for equipment within the wastewater treatment plant and the collection system being our wastewater pumping stations. So it could potentially cover a vast number of things that may come up over the year that are outside of operating expenses.
Don't go far, Ed. Because, again, going to the particular worksheet, would indicate that, replacement of system elements, year 1, but then skipping down to year 4. So you don't predict anything for the 2 years. Thank you.
Any other questions on wastewater for 25?
I
Yep,
do.
Deputy Mayor, please.
With WWO8, the manhole rehabilitation, is that targeted to a specific area or is that the entire municipality?
General program based on a rolling program that Ed's had for years. So they identify manhole rehabs previous year and then do that work in a corresponding year.
So on the worksheet, it's every year. We've always got something for manhole rehabilitation.
3 years back, we started doing a rolling program with a lot of departments, so that way it was continual improvement of good or better assets. Manhole rehab is one of those.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. For WWO9, asphalt parking lot upgrade. We know that there's engineering designs scheduled in 2027 for a potential upgrade to the wastewater plant. I'm wondering if these parking lot upgrades have taken into account
Through your worship, to
Future.
the deputy mayor, this is actually an error on my part and I do apologize. This was, actually built, during the, water and wastewater financial plan and rates need study and, was actually removed, as an item. And that's an oversight on me. My apologies. So there will be no parking lot, rehab work at the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll roll into the 2027 plans perhaps, or,
Potentially, anything at that wastewater treatment plant will be dependent upon capacity. Capacity is obviously dependent on, growth. So again, as we're looking into the future years of wastewater, you will note there's a high level placeholder for land, and potential.
right,
Those are just simply placeholders.
Okay.
Those are not, targeted dates as of yet. And again, really are dependent on capacity and, which is then dependent on growth.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good catch. Any other questions from anyone on the wastewater? Okay, moving on to Parks and Rec.
Page 90 or 91. Parks and Rec 25, Strathfield Pavilion 10,000. Strathfield Shorts, storage sheds 25, utility corridor repairs 70, canoe launch 60, and the East Pier rehab 50.
All right. Any questions? Just
And-
clarification on the canoe launch, that reserve fund that you're drawing from is the Vienna Reserve Fund?
Correct. There is an error. It's in the trail reserve for 130. It should be actually 70 in the trail reserve for 70 and the Vienna Reserve Fund for 60. Apologize for the transposition error. So that would mean that reserve 2307 trail reserve ending closing balance should be $31,016. And that means that the Vienna reserve fund will have a closing balance of $240,802 projected at end of 25. That change will be amended in the final and revised posted one point on the website.
Okay. Could you go through that again?
Trail reserve ending balance will now become $31,036, not negative 28,964. And the Vienna Reserve Fund will now have a closing balance of $240,802, estimated at the end of fiscal 25.
Okay, so you're just moving that 60,000 from one reserve to the other. All right,
That is
thank
correct,
you.
your worship.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any questions relating to these items?
Just utility corridors is coming from the trail reserve,
That is correct, your
All right.
worship.
70.
The 10,000 come in is our utility corridor payment we receive annually.
That's from Tilson.
No,
That's not from Tillsbury,
No,
that's
no.
from our power supplier that uses their utility.
Oh,
Capstone.
right, gotcha. The agreement.
Yep.
Got you. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Chilcott.
Thank you. Is this where we look at pulling ahead the Eden Pavilion or something to do in that park for 2025? It really is bare there. You go there with your kids and they can play on the equipment and get sunburnt. You can sit there and get sunburnt. And there's really nothing there
So-
for anybody but swing sets and
That's in
playground
27.
equipment.
In 27.
Okay, it's
I know it's in 2027, but it's been pushed out. And Richmond, Eden, like they've been waiting a long time for these types of things and they don't seem to be getting much of anything.
Through your worship, to Councillor Chilcott, I can give you a reason why they were pushed back. They're levy dependent. And you're trying to get the 2025 levy to a number that council wants. At the last council meeting, you guys said that you wanted to have a 6% tax levy
Or under.
or under. We can't do the Richmond Pavilion and Eden Pavilion. That's gonna take 165 and add to the levy in next year. So there's two options. If Councilor Chilcott wants it brought forward quicker than 27, one, we can see where we're at in Parkland and lieu money that comes in next year from the developments, both in Eden and what has been accumulated from Richmond, and see what funds we have there. Or we can bring it back as 26 and use levy and the Parkland money then. But if council brings this forward, you have now added 2.5% to the levy, if not 3. So take that in consideration.
I understand that. I'm just wondering if there was other things that could be rearranged so that, you know, that area can get something done. So you're saying, look at what comes in throughout the year next year and see if we can scrounge enough to put in a pavilion in Eden or Richmond or both? Sorry,
So
that's to Lauren.
So through the worship to Councillor Chilcott, when each house gets built, they pay a Parkland stipend. As more houses come on, more money goes in the Parkland account. We use the corresponding money that goes in the Parkland from the development and the building out there for the pavilion. Now remember, Councillor Chilcott, the Richmond upgrades years ago were paid by the same Parkland when you requested the basketball court and some other work in Richmond. So there probably isn't that much Parkland money still sitting in that account that relates to Richmond development. It's been a number of years since we've had a number of new houses in Richmond. So you'd have to either come out of Parkland, Parks and Reserve, or other. And I also will caveat this, the success rate of other small or soft grants, we have not been successful with an Ontario Trillium Fund or other of these Parks and Rec grants for a while. Unfortunately, a lot of those grants have went to not-for-profits, and the municipalities like ours have been shut out. I'm not discouraging at this item. I mean, the other option is if the community wants it, they could either fundraise or we take donations and we set up a donation amount for future work.
That is the area that does pay the most taxes in BAM, correct?
Ward 3 has a very high proportion of the tax base. You are correct, Councillor.
Correct. So I'm not saying they should get more, but they should get something for their money. Whether it's this year or next year, but they need something.
Respectfully, Councillor Chilcott, I don't have many maneuvering rooms in the 25 tax levy to add it. If I add it, there's not much to take out. There's next to nothing to take out in the 25 tax levy, unless council wants to reduce the Ojibwe transfer or increase the levy.
And we all know we don't want to do that.
Right.
Or at least I don't. So I guess we have to look at what comes in next year and see what we can do and keep it on our radar that they've been waiting a long time and it's been pushed out. And so we need to pull it back in as soon as we can.
A suggestion to Councillor Chilcott would be if council wants a report at the midway point next year to see how much money has come in the Parkland accumulated. We could do that. We could add that either in the Q2 building report, or we could add that as a supplementary development services or a finance report. I'm looking at the CAO if either of those options work. We could even add that going forward in the building if we want to put how much Parkland money comes in every quarter.
That would be a discussion that we'd have to have with planning, as it would be a supplementary report. I assume that we'd be able to do that if council directs it. We'd be able to bring in a report that is either a quarterly for 25 or is at least semi-annually to identify what our current Parkland reserves are, since we have been having an uptick in development in BAM.
I think that's a compromise, if council's willing to entertain that. Before we, and I know the clerk is keeping tabs of the discussion as we go. Before we will be making that decision towards the end. Councillor Chilcott, did you have anything further on that? Councillor Froese does have a question.
Not at this time.
Okay. Councillor Froese.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Chilcott there. So I have a further question. PR05, that's the purple ball diamond. Does the same explanation apply to that expenditure?
Meaning the reserve fund that's there?
Oh, that's out of reserve.
Yeah, there's a 135 for reserve and there's 65 on the levy.
Oh, got to scroll down.
Okay,
Okay.
no problem.
So, yeah, but so the portion on the tax levy, does that have the same explanation as you just gave for the pavilions?
But that's in 26 too, and I've got that. I'm
That is
sorry.
correct. So if we wanted to bring forward Strathville Ball Diamond or the Purple Dial Diamond or the East Pier or even the Memorial Park Pavilion, you're adding to the levy. Even though some of them can be grant or reserve. And again, those grants are placeholders. They're subject to availability of grants.
Right,
You don't get a grant, you're not making a bill, you're not making an application, you're not doing work.
okay, so just to draw or further to illustrate, PR 15, that's the Straddle Ball Diamond. Just made application for the sports and rec grant. If we successful and get it, there's an opportunity, could bring it forward in 25 or do it in 26.
That's correct. So, Mr. Adams and I submitted that application back last Tuesday, I believe. Steve did a lot of work over the weekend to put together a quality application. And we were able to actually make application for both ball diamonds. So yes, so this is actually a good news story. So if we are successful, then we will have 50% funding for potentially rehab of both items.
Councilor Emerson?
Aside, through you, Mr. Mayor, aside from, the pavilion, which is probably is important, in the meantime, can we not take and repurpose the tree planting thing and pick bigger? You know how we always do that, give away the trees or something? Can't we do some less trees and larger trees to get some shade in those parkland areas? Or, you know, trees should be considerably a lot less expensive than a pavilion. Just to
Suppose-
provide a little relief, you know.
So as a compromise to, that would be something under the operation budget. We could perhaps make some adjustments.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just in discussion here with the treasurer, that would be an operating item, and that's something that we can have as a component of the operating budget when we have it as a draft in March.
Can we focus, can we make a note and focus on that for those particular areas then?
Yes, I've got Steve and Lauren nodding as well. Staff will make a note and we'll see what we can do for the operating budget.
All right, thank you.
Under our Parks and Recs operating, we'll add a new line called Park Shade or tree installation. And we'll
Alright.
put a number there and it'll be up to council and how much they want to chew on, and staff will put a number that they think can accommodate some of the immediate concerns.
Okay.
Maybe you can go through some climate change
It's a good idea.
thing.
I like it.
Now, remember, you guys gonna have to fight over which trees go where now, just so you know.
Right?
Yeah. It is pretty bare and,
Yeah,
yeah, it is pretty bare.
very. Mhm.
Either that or we're buying parasols. Yeah. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. For PR 07 and 08, the replace roof and facade for the Stratfordville Pavilion and the storage sheds. This is gonna be a really tacky question, but are they leaking? Like, is this the reason why we're doing this, or I'm just curious?
Yeah.
That's my notes say, is it leaking?
No, through your worship, that's been in the ongoing budget for quite a while as a life replacement.
Okay,
However, obviously we can look at roof replacement. I can't remember which year it was, but it was actually brought forward about those Stratfordville sheds and adding siding to them, more for aesthetic reasons than anything. It's up to council's decision, obviously, what we need to do. Currently, the roofs right now are not leaking.
okay,
And moving forward, the Stratfordville Pavilion was actually to match the outbuildings after they are sided. The little ones, we're talking.
okay.
Could they be painted?
Exactly. Absolutely.
It's a lot cheaper to paint than replace steel.
That's right. So the two doors need to be replaced on the sheds at, $600 to $800. And then yes, ideally, they can be repainted. This is what that was for. If we can, we can produce some savings next year on these buildings, then
I was just gonna say it'd be a $35,000.
This was
change.
all originally part of our application.
Technically, it still
Yeah,
is a
right.
component of the application. They're placeholders in case
Oh.
we do proceed to move forward. However, in discussion with Steve on this, these are relatively small items, and how they are brought up aesthetically, painted versus siding could save money. Also, the current roof on the pavilion, based on discussion with Steve, is in good shape as it is. So it doesn't necessarily need to be replaced or upgraded unless there's a desire from council to ensure that the roofs all match. It's really an aesthetic approach. Alternatively, we could make the roofs on the existing outbuildings match the pavilion, which would essentially eliminate the PR07 as an item. So that could be an option too.
So the recommendation is from staff is to leave them as a placeholder.
Placeholder.
Counselor Chilcott.
Thank you. Just a question on the roofs. We're gonna replace them for aesthetics, but what is the life expectancy for them? And is that something we need to push it out for that time period?
Counselor Prunz, do you want to answer that one?
No,
Oh,
no, I
okay.
have another.
Okay.
Through your worship, the roofs that are on there, 25-year roofs, we're at that stage now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, absolutely. We have to think about it for the future. However, can it be pushed? Absolutely.
Can't hear you.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, I applaud your work. Good job for putting it in the budget. You know when a roof's gonna start leaking, and you also know you don't want the roof to start leaking because then this triples. So
Right.
Yeah.
I would like you to do your job and get her done.
That a screwdriver or with a paintbrush? No, I'm just.
Steve
Yeah.
has got so many years of experience.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what to do, when to
Right.
do, and where to do it.
Okay, so you're suggesting leave this as it is in the placement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's just looking for clarification. Anything else from members of council regarding those particular items or others? Big ticket item, actually, it's not even a big ticket item, the East Pier rehabilitation is just the engineering. 25.
That's correct. Yes.
And the engineering is there just so we have it ready for an application for a grant.
All right, yes,
We probably have a federal and a provincial election in 25.
quite
Mhm.
possibly. Okay. Okay, is there anything further in the Parks and Rec from anyone? Okay, you have a note in there, Madam Clerk, is this the point where we address the idea of bringing forward a, semi-annual report or quarterly or something on the, balance of the Parkland Reserve to accommodate a potential pavilion in 25?
I believe, Mr. Mayor, that the clerk is making a note and we'll do just one large motion at the end that encompasses all of what council wishes.
That's right, I'm
Yes.
just making sure she's got that.
Yes, 100%.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor Rose.
I'm sorry if I haven't, I can't find it right now. Where is the playground at the beach? When does that come up?
That's under facilities, isn't it?
No, Mr. Mayor, I believe, it's Parks and Rec, it's PR02. The reason why it's not being discussed right now in 2025 is because that item technically doesn't start until 2028. So once we get through 2025, we'll go back to the rest of the years.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna concentrate on 2025, just. Anything else under 2025? Okay. Then let's move on with the next, which is facilities.
Yes, that'll be on 101 or 102. So in the facilities 25, we have the facility audit. It was in the 24 facilities 24. That money will be reserved And that 30,000 on the levy will be repurposed for the facility audit. So that'll come off the levy. So FAO2 will be funded via reserve, not tax levy, because the facility audit could not get done in 24.
So that should be reserved rather than levied, right?
Correct, your worship.
Thank
No.
you.
Just to clarify, not to interrupt the treasurer. So for this item, we did allocate $30,000 in the 2024 budget for this. I have reached out to the engineer on file that had conducted our 2020 or 2014 and 2016 facility audits. And the costing estimates that they have provided back for the works closer to about $60,000. So realistically speaking, we have to keep it as a levy item because $30,000 will not fund the update required for the facility audit.
So then the facility audit cost, total cost should actually be adjusted to 60,000. With 30,000 from the reserve and 30,000 from the levy.
We can make that update, yes.
FAO2, 30K reserve, 30K levy. Total cost, 60K.
Thank you for that. Okay. Moving on.
Okay. No other questions in the facilities 25? We can go to the.
Well, is there any questions in the facilities 25? Councilor Emerson?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. With the SEC expansion and we don't really have any estimate of that cost now and that's still out.
Mhm.
What is the implication if, because there was a mention of a 2.9 number a couple meetings ago, million? So just kind of what's the implications of under budgeting? Like say we put 2.1, but the actual cost comes back at 2.9. And how do we fund that difference if that's what we're allowing for the capital budget? I guess that what are the implications by stating this number too?
I see what you're getting at. The 2.9 was the cost before the D-scope, correct, Thomas?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the 2.9 was the cost before the D-scope, but it's also, it also incorporates the D-scope plus a potential upside risk of 30%.
Yeah,
With-
plus the contingency.
Yes, which was identified in a few previous reports on the SEC. So since the estimate itself is what is in the budget right now, because we don't reasonably know if we're going to have that 30% upside risk or if we're going to have it close to our budget or if it's going to be under budget. We have seen costs level out. Realistically, if we have a revised estimate or tendering results well over budget and council chooses not to award, then there's no risk. If council chooses to award, then council has to have a discussion about where that overage comes from. And that would be, either a reserve, which are running low in some areas because of the council's desire to keep the tax rate low, or it's debt utilization over the short term. And that would be something that the treasurer would provide comment on at that time.
So, yeah, but wouldn't it be better with those eventualities to plan for the higher number? Like that's what I'm asking. So like it just seems because then we're aware or we're making arrangements for the difference in the balance. It just I don't know how to word the through Mr. Mayor. I don't know how to word the question exactly, but if I'm severely under budgeting something, it would be better to over budget for it than under. Because then we already would be making a plan where to go for the.
Lauren?
Through your worship, Councilor Emerson, an estimate is an estimate until we have it close to actual cost. Council has to determine how we're gonna fund it, period. Right now, what's presented here, we ran at 1.4, what we're approved with the ICIP, and the existing reserves, that is our portion, already set in stone. That 2.1 does not have any reserves or any additional money that council has not encumbered. Yes, there was a previous staff report which outlined how it could be funded on those upper reaches with the 30% overage and such. Council hasn't formally given direction to spend over the 2.1. Now, if council wants us to increase the estimate to 2.5 or 2.6, then council needs to figure out how they're gonna balance it. So the question comes now is, which reserves do you want to use? Debt utilization or other?
Just as a quick follow-up to the treasurer, that a number of the reserves are already being used for other items too. So road construction is a partial allocation here, but partial to public works for tunnel line, for instance. So if council wants to increase that number to say 2.5 or 2.6, council would likely have to include a number under debt financing as a component to allow for that overage.
Supplementary, one more
Please,
question.
Councilor Emerson.
Just a clarification I need on how the grant process, we spend the money, we pay for it, and then we ask, how do we finance that money in, like, is there a bridge loan or we're borrowing from another reserve, or how's that
We
work?
use internal cap, so for any project that has a grant, no matter how big, how small, we cash front it all the way through unless there is considered a point in time, a fiscal year end, or a percentage completion measurement. So every year, if we don't have it done, we have to do what we've spent in the year, we get that percentage paid. Doesn't matter, same thing. When we did the water lines in Vienna, we cash carried that almost 11 months. That was $1 million plus. We cash carried it internally. Didn't seek a bridge, didn't seek other. What that happens is, you guys don't get a higher yield on your operating cash that's sitting there. It's actually in utilization and constantly turning for new assets or other stuff in the community. Does it impact the quality of a resident's life? No, it's just cash that we have on hand that's not generating a higher yield. It's still cash that we're going to get, so that future collection from the upper tier government is considered AR. Once we submit the application, generally they pay within 30, 60, 90, or 120 days, depending the funding agreement. So we cash carry it, and the AR is good on our balance, as long as we meet the conditions of the funding agreement.
So, they're supplementary, through you, Mr. Mayor, there is no risk of using a reserve that's temporarily to pay for funds on any project. It's always coming out of cash, is that what you're saying?
We use our internal operating cash to fund any in-year projects. And in the situation that we need to dip into larger, then a report comes back to council indicating that we have to sell the following investments or other instruments to fund it. We have not been in that situation in the 11 years I've been here. Now, let's say hypothetically, we're talking about stormwater. We're talking water line. You bet your bottom dollar, we're probably gonna have to sell everything we have. But that's millions and millions and millions of dollars of work.
No, but one more point of clarification then, so there is no risk at all that we're borrowing from on any project, like say we had to replace a water line and then we're gonna pay, we have all this money set aside to pay off the Jibwa debt. There's no borrowing that temporarily to go someplace else, asking for a friend, right? Like, you know, oh, here's 1 million here and we're gonna take this and use it temporarily till we get paid back. It's always gonna come out of cash or selling CDs or something, or GICs or something. Is that-
So first utilization is internal cash, which is finances the day-to-day operations and the capital procurement.
Right,
The second option is reserves, which have investments against them or operating cash. And the second is if either of those can be done, then you use what's considered a construction or a short-term loan. That's why every January we have passed an interim borrowing bylaw to provide us any short-term liquidity up to 750,000.
I thank you. I'm just trying to clear up some general
Mhm.
misconceptions.
We
or-
cash carry until we get the money.
But it is good to know, and you made the point, Lauren, that over the 11 years that you've been here, we have not been put in a position where we've had to go external on short-term projects.
That's correct, but we do have some big ones coming that will
We do.
push us and likely require us to have debt instruments on hand as well when we're issuing multi-million dollar payment certificates.
And just to clarify on that comment you made earlier about, well, we'll have to sell everything to do it. You meant financial instruments, my friend.
Financial, to clarify, just to clarify, we would have to sell all the financial instruments that relate to that project that are not restricted.
Right.
Restricted ones would have to stay
Yeah.
as they are.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for catching that.
Oh, I caught it. I was thinking, oh, don't say that. Yes, Mr. Olson, please.
Thank you, Worship. And I just want to provide a general comment in regards to Councillor Emerson's question in regards to the placeholder for the SCC. And this is a general comment in regards to project management. And we work with it to come up with these placeholders. Obviously, we're working with professionals, very experienced professionals. And one of the advantages that we have in project management as owners and working with these professionals is that we can plan the tendering process. We can hit a target very, very closely by simply listing things in a tender as provisional. It gives the council an opportunity to pick and choose through that tendering process. We have a scope of work, we have a listing of work. It essentially helps mitigate the overages and what you're looking to accept by having these items listed as provisional. And I know, in fact, that is what, you know, Thomas and Lauren and quite frankly, Steve are working on. And myself, we've worked on very large projects like this, and it is very, very beneficial to work through these and have all, you know, the like-minded professionals and staff being very aware of the wants and needs of a project and what potentially could come in as an overage and list it as a provisional item so that council has the opportunity to choose to come in closer to that placeholder of money.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ed.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Can you just break down under the section where I'm still talking about FA04? You have 578 facility reserve. What is the 73,000 grant receivable? What does that mean?
So I'll answer that question. So that would be the receivable money that we receive back from the ISIP program based upon the claims that we have submitted so far for money spent for architecture services. So we get a 73.33% remittance combined from the federal and provincial governments. That 73,000 is the remittance, and then that can then be used to further fund the next stage of the project.
It's our first claim certificate.
Trying to find where you found that. All right, I got it. Yeah. So that worksheet that identifies the source for those particular
Right.
reserve funds. All right. Okay. I don't know what page number that is, but it's FA04 on the worksheet, guys. and It's way back here. 321. 321. Okay. All right. Just so everybody's on the same page.
Any other questions relating to facilities 25 that council has?
Well, it's not necessarily an elephant in the room, but of course, FA08, it's grant dependent. And it's there as a placeholder.
That is correct, your worship.
So
If we're ready, we can move the next department,
planning,
which is gonna be 112, 113. So again, with Margaret's department, a lot of the stuff is just rolling. Happens every 5 years. So this is the remaining amount required for the zoning bylaw review, PDO two, for 30K levy. It's just the remaining works to get done. A portion of the works got done in 24, remaining in 25. OP is in 24, the zoning is 25.
Yes, so different program. Yes, yes, thank you.
This is the 20, that's 25 and 26 project.
Yes,
Right, two.
yeah. 30,000 to the next year, 10,000 following. Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
And again, official plan comes back in 29 with 29 and 30. And then the zoning comes back in 31. And then the official plan comes back in 34.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of capital programs in 25. If we want to go back into general government and talk about anything in 26 to 34, let's do that at that time, unless council wants to take a
You want to take a short
coffee,
recess?
water break.
Yes, please.
Okay, let's break for 10 minutes. welcome back. We have two additional items under 2025.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did bring these up when we were chatting about Public Works about two additional draft capital items that would be strictly reserve based. There's no levy impact on these. So we'd be looking for council to consider and approve the addition of PW 135 and 136. 135 is an $85,000 item for that climate change risk assessment that we would be utilizing for any federal stormwater grants. And 136 is $35,000 allocation for pre-engineering for the stormwater works in Port Burwell, essentially looking at potentially rephasing or reallocating some of the phasing in light of inflationary pressures over the last few years. So if the council is amenable and having those included in 2025, then the clerk will include that in the motion at the end.
Just to clarify again, Thomas, 135 and 136, are they levy or reserve based?
They are reserved.
Reserve based. Deputy Mayor,
Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, the 135 was how much?
85,000.
85. Thank you.
okay. Open it up for council. Any questions, concerns? Some of this, of course, well, all of it is, it's setting the table for future opportunities.
Mm.
It just seems to be that, is the way we have to operate in this environment. So any current, Councillor Chilcott?
Thank you. Just curious, I missed the very beginning of this conversation. So the money for those two is coming out of reserves. What are we going to lose for this year then? That was already allocated?
Nothing?
It would just reduce our reserve position on the reserves that we would assign the funding from. So in essence, it just brings the respective reserves down.
Okay, so the money's already in the reserve for it.
Non-levy impact.
Okay,
First one you call climate or environmental? Climate risk assessment. Which is something that we need in order to apply for stormwater.
Gives us more ammunition for those federal core infrastructure grants.
Okay, is everyone comfortable with that? Okay, I think it's a good piece going forward, doing business. All right, so now we're returning back to
General
beginning
government,
and looking at future things, and if there's anything that the council wants to talk about, perhaps bringing forward.
I would caution the council that anything 27 and on, it's just a placeholder.
All right,
A lot of the stuff is just there based on asset management replace cycle, revolving or rotating programs and stuff like that, or related to like election reserve transfers that relates to when the election happens and stuff like that. So if there's anything in 26 in general that the council wants to discuss, as you see, there's just 3 reserve transfers and the renewal replacement of the council computers coming the end of term life cycle.
one of the things that was asked about under the comments, I guess, and this would be the place to bring it up, would be social media, and we've got a policy coming forward towards the end of the year.
Yeah, so the expectation for the social media would be either the end of this year or very early 2025, and that would be an operational matter.
All right, thank you very much for that. Good. Is there anything that anyone can think of from a general government point of view that you want to bring forward? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Is it just standard practice that we replace the laptops every 4 years?
Yes.
Yeah. So not to overspeak the treasurer, but generally speaking, when it comes to IT assets, and this is one of the things that we'll be looking for going forward, is having a replacement plan for our assets. Now, we've had something in place for council computers for a number of years. This has been something that's been ongoing since 2016 or 2018. Essentially, anytime we have an election, council computers get renewed. The other council computers, if they can still be repurposed for secondary duties within the corporation, are then repurposed within the corporation. But it is standard practice for that to happen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I like that they're being repurposed because they are in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. For what they
Comment.
are.
Right? Yeah.
All right.
Except for
You're right.
Counselor,
You're right.
except for
You're
Counselor
right.
Emerson.
Yeah, might have to have a extra fumigation for that one. Yeah.
Cheapers.
Okay. All right, are we gonna move forward with the fire budget? Is there anything in there?
If there's no other questions in general for the remaining years, we can move to fire. Council wants to. So let's go to fire. So fire 26 will be on 36 and 37. So we have our fire equipment reserve transfer 225, Bucker gear gain, taker one replacement for 680, SCBA, which is the follow up from 25 to 26, 210, radio system reserve 30K, thermal imaging cameras, which we've already just talked about before the chief did, and the portable radios. So one of those is not a revolving program, tanker one replacement. The rest are revolving programs we've already discussed, and their functional year starting in 25. So they just flow through procurement. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. For the PDO 6, for the tanker one, it says that operating safety will be part of the assessment. The assessment is internal, external, legislated.
One momento.
Just not sure what that operating safety will be part of the assessment means. I just was looking for clarification.
Just a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so it replaces the 1999 Superior unit currently in service, projected lifespan is currently set at 25, so we're pushing it. This is over the NFP standard. The cost to maintain FRS will be monitored to ensure it won't be prudent to replace the unit earlier. Operating safety will be part of the assessment. Chief? Speak to the description.
The operating safety. With regards to replacement of tanker one in 2026, that is going to be it's going to be, if you recall, I went through this, in great detail. When I brought this forward
Okay,
for the replacement of the new tanker.
right.
The new tanker is in fact going to be, although technically replacing tanker one, it's going to be actually go up to station 2. It is a 3,000 gallon tanker. We have a water system within for the south end. We do not have any water system in the north end. So the idea is to take this tanker that was supposed to replace tanker one and put it up as tanker 2. We're going to bring tanker 2. It's a newer and it's much better shape than tanker one is, and we're going to bring that down to tanker one. Tanker one is getting old, as I said, 98. Every time we use it, it's costing me an operations cost to get it repaired. As far as the pump goes, it's mainly being used as a water carrier, and that's but not as a backup pumper if I can help it.
Okay.
So it is desperate need to be replaced, and and then eventually, if you'll look at going further, the 2029 budget, I believe we'll be talking about replacing pumper 2. That's a 2,500 gallon vehicle. My intent will be then to take that and move it down to replace the old tanker 1 and put a new bigger unit up, again, the same size unit up at the north end to keep the north end with the most water. And then finally bring down so we can have a larger capacity of carry water down in the south end to assist with regards to when we need water. As we know, our water system is very fragile. That make sense?
Yep. Supplementary. So just looking at that projected cost, are we on target for that, or is that a pretty modest budget?
No.
We had conversations.
Yeah,
Yeah, in the mic, please.
We had conversations about the 680 number today, your worship, through the deputy mayor. And conversations that both chief and I had, that we felt that the 680 was within 25,000 of that number.
Okay.
Likely will be a canoe procurement. If I remember correctly, this one has actually already been procured,
This one has been procured.
so we have a rate already.
Yeah.
Through.
Yes, it was done through Canoe.
Oh, okay.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just gonna segue really quick to FDO 4. I know it's a 2027, but I just have a question about fire hoses. They're dated at the arrival of a fire truck, but what is it, does the life expectancy, is it longer than the actual fire truck or is it shorter?
It'll depend on operational. If we are in a situation where a hose does get caught and, or gets burnt, we do replace it. That goes under operating. However, it is good practice to replace, when you bring a new truck in, to replace the truck with new hose. The truck itself is 25 to 30 years old at that time. We have not done that because we've been working for the municipality and realizing that we have other needs for till 2025, at least March 2025. So when we ordered our last truck, we did not obtain new hose. We kept it down to the very basics. And again, when I've ordered this new tanker, we have not put hose on that either. So it's through that is a replacement to start replacing the hose. And I even have one tanker up in the north end that is kind of short on hose. It'll do what it needs to do, but it is short on hose to what the standard is and to get us up to standard. Length of hose for high vol for 100 feet is roughly $1,000
For 100 feet?
for 100 feet. So, and you cut it into two half 50 feet, you think that'd be 500? No, it's $150 because there's two couplings on that to make it up. And that's even the low estimate on the 1,000. I think it's going up again.
Thank you, Chief. Any other items under future capital on fire that anyone wants to talk about? Again, anything above 27, as you say, Lauren, is just simply placeholders.
Mhm.
We have no outstanding, so the pumper is the tanker one replacement. That's the last physical procurement that council's authorized. The rest are just the revolving programs.
Okay.
Okay.
And just so council's aware, and chief, just come back for a second. We likely wouldn't be looking for anything beyond for capital equipment, so 29 for pumper 2. So you probably would see something, fair to say, chief, probably middle of 27 for pumper 2 for 29.
Oh, absolutely. All indications are 2 years beforehand. If you're ordering a truck. For the chassis.
But
And again,
Wow.
we just have an election down south, so we don't know how that's gonna affect that.
so we've had some pricing stabilization. Now we could have some change or market volatility because these are predominantly US based items. And unfortunately, our Canadian dollar has declined since we've had a change of election down south, and we could have a further decline of our dollar. So there is some Forex worries here, especially on that item, just so council's aware, but it's a 29 item.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a high percentage of that, of our stuff is US denominated procurement.
All the chassis come from the States.
Yeah.
Anything else on fire? Shall we move ahead? I don't think there's anything in building we need to worry about. There's just. a pickup
We
truck.
talked about the replacement
Yeah.
truck already.
That's 27 you're looking at. All right, so.
Let's
Is there anything in
go-
public works? I don't imagine.
Public Works 26, which will be page 58 or 59. So we got the Best Line Culvert, the grader, which we have already started the procurement. Okay, we have not. We anticipate to bring a report to council on the grader. So that would come either middle 25, late 25 for 26 delivery. And the same would be for the tandem. So then we have Murray, Chute, gravel program, Carson, sidewalks, standard programs there. And then we also have the stormwater phase 1D, which we've already talked about for phase 1C. That's basically it. Again, a lot of our road stuff, placeholders are when we look at our life cycle costs. When was the last time we did rehab, rehabilitation? One caveat to consider in the public works, if council decides to go forward with a homogeneous DC, if we did road improvements, conversions, or upgrades, those funds could have a portion of that money be paid for in DC. So there's a reason why we're doing the DC study, so I want to put that into a bigger picture. It helps pay for gravel going to tar and chip or road expansion or improvements. If there isn't any further questions in the public works budget for 26 to 34, we could move on to the next ones. Like I said, these are all just placeholders. They really are.
Lauren, can you speak to the PW 107 just for when we do the motion later?
I'll speak to that. You know what? We'll do that now while we're in public works. So going back to PW 107, which is Public Works 25. So the roads need study portion will be done in 24. However, we have a portion of that was relating to the asset management plan. So PW 107 actually needs to come down 30,000 to keep a $25,000 placeholder for our AMP upgrades. So that's a revision. So on PW 107, it was originally 55,000, 30,000 reduction. That will reflect the roads need study completed in 24 as the manager of public works indicated, but a portion of that 25 needs to stay. And that is due to legislative requirements for our AMP as of June 2025. So that work will be done with public works staff, myself, and with Watson and Associates to bring it up to reg.
So we're not removing that.
We're removing the amount from 55 down to 30, down to 25.
Down to 25.
Yes,
All right.
because the road study will be finished at the end of 24.
All right, so it's 25 total
Tax
cost.
levy?
Tax levy. So it would be a 30,000 levy reduction on the draft.
All right.
Okay.
All right, because yeah, we were thinking that that was taken out.
Mhm.
So that what's left to be done is a $25,000 project.
Relating to AMP.
You need to recode that as something different or?
No, I will leave it as PW 107. I will reduce it on the master and I'll also update the sheet to put the verbiage that relates to AMP and not the roads need study.
Thank you.
And I think that closes off stuff in public works.
I believe.
Let's move to the next department.
Well, we've discussed water and wastewater at length. Do you want to,
If we're good on water and wastewater, we can skip that one if everyone's good with that.
I think we are.
go public, it's Parks and Rec next, I believe?
Yeah.
98 or 91 or 92. All right, so 26 Memorial Park, 250, East Pier Rehab, 275. Council's aware we have the engineering work in 25, so we can have a project for 26. Gain provincial and federal governments elections likely next year. So it's a really good application and program to have ready for those programs that can become available. As indicated, we have the Strathfield Ball Diamond and the Purple Ball Diamond out for a grant application now. And that would come back either forward, depending on the status, or depending whether we leave it in 26 and fund it based on if we're successful or not with that application for the port grant.
Do we need to update this sheet then in terms of the grant application for Berlin one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we don't have to necessarily upgrade it because the Burwell one is already funded through reserve and levy. Now, if we do end up successful with the grant, then we can bring back something that updates it. And just so council's aware, the Sport and Rec Infrastructure Fund, the work has to be done within, I believe it's 2 years of signing the TPA. So if there are levy pressures in 26 and council wishes to push the project to 27, we anticipate that to be an option as well. All that to say is that we don't anticipate there to be any amendments necessary on PR 15 or PR 5 at this time.
Okay.
Any questions for council on Parks and Rec for either 26 or any of the functional sheets up to 2034?
I would suggest to council that this would be the time, if there's and to be any discussion around the playground equipment at the East Beach or about any of the capital items that were brought up during the East Beach risk assessment that was presented at the last meeting.
The East Beach playground equipment, was that originally under 28?
Oh, it's PRO.
It's PRO2.
Yeah.
PR02 is a multi-year item.
Multi-year,
Yeah,
right.
it's believe Steve 7 years. It's looking at 6 playgrounds plus potentially at the beach. So if we did remove the East Beach playground, then it would be reduced by a year. That item would be. Alternatively, if council wants to keep that in at this time, because it is an item that is slated for ballpark 2030 at this time, then we can have further discussions closer to that date.
So we would do Eden, Corinth, Richmond, East Beach, Strathville Community Park, Vienna Community Park, and the Port Burwell Community Park.
You're talking about playground equipment.
And that's in order.
Thank you.
So it starts at 2028 and then works its way.
2028 to 2034.
Mm.
And likely with that approach, we would probably do a multi-year tender. But I will defer to.
Councilor Chilcott, do you have a question right now, or shall we wait for Steve's explanation?
We just can't, I don't know about anybody else, but I can't hear Lauren when he's speaking.
Okay, thank you. You got to speak into the mic.
Just a little context behind all these items. I was trying to jump ahead of this meeting. Back in September, I actually met with a couple specialists on playgrounds, just more or less a free consulting of people that do this every day. Our playgrounds, for the most part, are in very good shape. There are functional items that we can't replace. However, the budgeted amount currently will not replace the playground equipment that's there. The cost of most of our playgrounds today are in around 150.
Wow.
So 75, I think most of them were at 75, would be to expand them possibly. End of life for these playground equipments again are 25 years. So in 2030, we're not actually at some of them. However, Corinth and Eden are the oldest, and there are some identified issues with them. However, I think when it comes time to actually doing these projects, I'd have to bring a report back, identify what we can do, even before we get started, possibly the year before we do capital budget in 27, I guess, or 28. I think it'd be a good idea. We either have something written, expansions at 75,000. This is today's money. It's going to be minimal. It's a 1 unit piece of equipment. It's a base. Some of our bases have to get upgraded if we do any replacement. The piece stone has to go. So unless we move stuff forward for that sort of thing, when it comes to larger items, unless we want to put a hard surface or a matted surface down, that still won't cover the cost of our playgrounds. Like it is really, it's pretty expensive. However, moving ahead, it's something we can't lose sight of either, because they will need to be replaced. So just as a little context towards that.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned, Steve, that Corinth and Eden are the oldest units that are out there. Are they end of life then? Are we at 25 years or where? are we
No,
at?
they're currently not at end of life either. Those units that have parts missing now, and there's actually one unit up in Corinth that has to be removed probably next spring. Really, we can't replace it with the same thing, so it's a pretty expensive piece to replace. So by the time we get here, I think we're gonna have, 3/4 of a playground equipment set out there without replacing these parts, so. We can bring it forward when the time comes if need be, to spend some money to add another feature to them. However, the features are a significant amount of money.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking at the timeline. So would it be prudent to move Corinth to 2028 as opposed to, looks like Eden is the first one on that list? Just because of the repairs, or is this a fluid?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the deputy mayor, it's the way that the item is presented is it's really presented as a fluid item. So it depends on need closer to the date of the item. And then we'd have further information for council about how we would likely proceed in the order. The item now essentially just identifies which playgrounds we're looking to address within the 7-year period, but it
Okay.
doesn't have to be the way that it's laid out in the actual item.
Oh, so supplementary, if I may, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if we could amend the East Beach playground equipment to be East Beach / Memorial Park. Include that like as an option as opposed to just keep like beach. Because some of the comments that we're getting is that they would like a playground closer to the beach. Because where the existing playground is in Port Burwell is much further away, near the fire hall. Now, I am aware there is the playground equipment at the school, but that isn't a municipal playground. So, I mean, I would be amenable to leaving the playground equipment slated for the beach if we could also identify alternate locations closer to the beach as opposed to right on the beach. Just a thought.
Hypothetically, how about, swapping out? I see.
Hmm.
I'll get there. Swapping out, the idea of a pavilion at Memorial Park and replacing it with playground equipment. Just something to, throw out there.
Yeah.
Sir Furrow, please.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of a procedure question, I guess. Why is there playground equipment on our books for the beach? Was there like a huge petition? Was it one person, 2 people asked for it? And then, and I'll tell you why I'm asking, because in my opinion, when I go to the beach, I go for the sand and the water. I don't know why there has to be a playground on the beach.
I'll take that one, Mr. Mayor. So this was a recommendation originally from last year before the capital budget by the Waterfront Advisory Committee about including a playground at the East Beach in the budget. And council ultimately decided to do that. And now there is a recommendation before council to reconsider that. And that's why it is back on as a discussion item this time.
Yep, Council Furrow.
So we're reconsidering it and booting it off of here? Is that what you just said?
If council wishes to, if council wishes to amend the item or relocate it or fully remove it from PR 02, council has the authority to do so.
I so move, yeah.
Okay, that'll be part of the omnibus, discussion. Again, it comes down to a broader thing, so removing the playground equipment off the East Beach. That's fine. Something for consideration. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm like, move it up higher where there's more people around, put a pavilion, like you mentioned, no problem, right? But maybe we have some other pavilions to build up north first, but whatever.
Trying to recall what the advice from the Waterfront Advisory Committee was regarding Memorial Park Pavilion. I don't recall if they had it.
Not,
No,
not.
fair enough. Fair enough. That pavilion is grant dependent,
Yes.
yes, so whatever council wants to do.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, wasn't there discussion that divided attentions between beach and playground equipment too close?
Yeah.
And that was the impetus for moving it up to Memorial Park or something.
I think that's
Mhm.
probably what the, what it's all about.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was some discussion at the time about concerns with the playground at the beach in proximity, obviously, to the waterfront, especially if, you know, there's parents with a number of kids and their attention gets diverted between kids that want to be in the water versus kids that want to be in the playground. And that is an added consideration from a risk or safety perspective.
Deputy Mayor,
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So just for clarity, we're changing the name of the East Beach Playground to Memorial Park Playground?
that's if you wish to keep that.
And
Well, okay.
Because we have a motion from Counselor Froze to remove the East Beach Playground. So can we reallocate the name of that to Memorial Park then?
Well, that's what I'm wondering what council wants to do. If you'd rather relocate or even dispense with, and I'm hearing
Hmm.
relocate. Whoa. You need
Right.
to speak
Yeah.
into the mic.
No,
all it would
yeah.
do is just change the name on the description sheet. And it would-
Agreed,
And
but
it
does
would
not
still,
remove it.
and it would still be back on council's purview in 26, 27 on
Right,
Correct.
which park and playground is the first of the priority list.
Yeah.
So again, you guys could have a change of opinion again in 27 on that.
it's supplementary through you, Mr. And I understand the optics of it, but also we defer these conversations to this time. And then we don't actually make a decision. I think we need to make a decision.
Yep.
Do we want to have playground equipment earmarked specifically for the East Beach or not? Like, I just think it's fair for our ratepayers. They've asked for it. We need to have a discussion whether we're gonna move forward on it. And if future councils decide to remove it altogether, that's at their discretion. But again, I would be amenable to just to make my position clear. I'm amenable to the Memorial Park, but not the East Beach, period. That's my thought.
Counselor Chilcott.
Thank you. Was there not a couple of meetings ago talk of moving the playground equipment from the Ball Diamond to Memorial Park, or was that just
That was-
thrown out there and not actually?
That was contingent upon developing the Ball Diamond into residential lots.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
That was the idea that was floated, that's all.
And I agree with not having it on the beach. And I'm good to either remove it or transfer it to the Memorial Park.
I think I've seen 3 anyway. Okay.
3 what?
3 who are recommending either removal and from, at least not placing on the beach. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
If we're trying to cut costs, we should remove it completely.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know about removal because,
But just not.
if there's young kids and Port Burrell's basically divided in 2 by a creek and a big long bridge, like, you know,
The bridge
So-
is gonna be kind of compromised in the next little while.
right? So, you know, I'm gonna send my 3-year-old across to the Ball Diamond from, you know,
I understand.
Periscope Theater, say, go play in the park, you know? So,
Okay. All right, all this does is just rename it on the sheet.
Yeah.
That's all it does.
Yep.
All right,
Absolutely.
if
Mhm.
that's what council wishes to do, it's not cutting another budget, it's just renaming. All right, fair enough. Yeah, Counselor Froze?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Grant contingent.
Grant contingent.
Is that what the? That's not a playground
It's
equipment.
not on there. Is it grant contingent?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute. Yes, they are. Grant contingent, grants. No, they're grants.
Oh,
They're grants. Thank you for observing that, Counselor Probst. Okay. We'll leave it grant contingent. All right. Anything else under Parks and Rec? We've already addressed the issue of perhaps dependent upon availability of resources of revisiting in year an Eden Pavilion. That's something that's going in that omnibus motion at the end.
You say that again, please?
Contingent upon available resources in year. That will depend whether we can go ahead with moving the pavilion up into 25 or leaving it as a placeholder where it is. Does that sound fair?
Sounds fair.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
I have another question under Parks and Rec, and I'm just not
Yes.
sure. Are we moving forward past the playgrounds? Are we're done with that one? We can.
Where we moved into
Any other
Pavilion.
questions are
Okay,
applicable?
we're good. All right, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask a clarification question for Steve on PR 13. There was a recommendation to switch the Moby mats to a vehicle, an amphibious vehicle, as opposed to, now I know we've had discussion about this. Or like the accessible wheelchair, like an oversized.
that's in 27.
It's in the comments. There was a comment, not by council. I'm just asking Steve for like, the placeholder here is $50,000. I'm just wondering if there was any, I know we talked about.
Yeah, you're talking
this.
about the accessible chair for the beach.
Correct.
That was asked within the comments.
Yes,
I'm not 100% sure on, I think, pretty sure that's around 13,000. The
okay.
problem with this is that's
Storage.
that's a managed piece of equipment
Mhm.
without a managed department, which is Parks Department. We don't have full-time staff at the beach that can manage that. Port Stanley, for example, they do manage these chairs. However, they're managed by the lifeguards. They are signed in and out, and you can reserve them online as well. So we'd have to look at internal operations, I believe, to actually make something like that happen.
So was the question, Deputy Mayor, of moving that forward or of leaving it as a placeholder 27? It's grant dependent.
It is great. Yes. Correct. I didn't want to move it forward. I was just asking for clarification if.
Okay.
So the Moby mats are actually more expensive. However, you're dealing with storage and management if you're looking at going with a chair.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct. Obviously, the Moby mats, it's a seasonal item more than a daily or a weekly item.
Right.
It'd be more operational to manage one chair, unfortunately, than the mats. Yeah, I mean, it's something that has to be, we can't leave it on the beach and expect it to stay on the beach and operate without staff.
Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think just following the deputy mayor's comments and response from the manager of public works, some of that discussion around different accessibility options came out of the risk assessment that was presented at the last council meeting. And perhaps this is a good time to have a discussion about if council wishes to proceed with including any of those items or wishes to essentially end the discussion. A couple of those items are quite substantial from a cost perspective. We don't have funding mechanisms outside of reserves and levy for some of these. And if we add one of these onto the levy, for instance, whether it's a patrolled or lifeguarded beach, or whether it's a barrier around the pier, council's desire of having a levy in 25 that is no more than 6% higher than 24 is essentially out the window. However, there are some smaller recommendations identified in the risk assessment that might be able to fit under the scope of operations. And if council's willing to have that discussion, I defer to the manager of Public Works to identify some of those options that can potentially be tackled under the operating budget.
First of all, I think you hit the nail on the head. If it's some of the more manageable things that would fall under the operations budget. I don't know. I'll poll council right now. Is there any appetite at looking at those big ticket items that come out of that risk assessment? I don't think there is at this point.
But there should be appetite for accessibility.
Yes,
Right.
agreed, agreed.
But all that big ticket stuff like that, right, but
In the absence of a credible funding for source, I'd say I agree with you. So we have to tackle that issue probably under the operations budget.
yeah. Yeah, I mean.
Again, you can't be heard.
Well, sorry,
Yeah.
that. To you, Mr. Mayor, that would be, something like if we ever did consider paid parking
Yeah.
to put it towards accessibility or directed to the beach and not to general reserves or whatever, that would be, actually a good way to finance, accessibility.
Yeah, I think that's something council needs to consider for sure under the operations budget. But anyway, going back, so I'm sensing that there isn't appetite under the capital budget for any of those risk assessment items. Would that be fair to say? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I think just one quick question regarding that, like the intention is to apply for the blue flag
Yep.
status again this year. So I think judging by the outcome of that blue flag application, I think that'll really determine how serious the conversation has to be in regards to those identified higher ticket item risks, because if we're not going to get the status based on that, then we may have to revisit that and obviously the funding model in order to pay for them, which would open up the discussion for some of this other stuff that's earmarked later on down the road. But I
agree. I guess what I'm getting at is I don't think in the absence of having something in order to pay for some of that stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think we're at a spot through the operations budget, if it is a couple of buoys or if it's signage or things like that, that we've talked about during the last council meeting. Things that I think that we can do to improve.
those are manageable. Yeah,
They're manageable.
100%.
I just don't know that I guess what I'm saying is I don't think there's anything to bring forward for the capital budget in my mind. Thomas?
Mr. Mayor, I'd agree with you. I just want to identify to council that Manager of Public Works and Bylaw Enforcement Officer are working on a paid parking report. We're hoping to have that before council the 5th of December. And if not, then it will be the 19th of December. It'll be before Christmas. And that will give council an idea of some options for what a paid parking model could look like. One of the options is going to be like a fully user pay model, basically taking a lot of the capital projects that could fall under the beach right off the levy altogether and making them fundable through revenue generated by paid parking and allowing the municipality to access some debt to tackle some of these capital projects down at the beach. So that report is forthcoming within the next month.
Okay. So everyone good with that? Okay. No one said budgets for fun.
Your worship.
This is.
In your worship, just to
Yeah.
indicate what the CEO said, if you have a revenue generating model and utilization of Infrastructure Ontario, which is cheapest debt we can use for capital, you can have a revolving program that does heavy capital, soft capital, and service or other capital improvements, because you have a revenue generator that's servicing the debt
Mm.
and taking off the levy. You can string it over a 10-year debenture, 20-year debenture, 25. And it becomes off the levy. It's a user pay model. You pay to play, you pay To beach, you pay to enjoy. A lot of places in the world that you have to do that.
Well, understood, but that, and when that discussion comes forward to council, then that should help open up the opportunities moving forward. And perhaps in a future capital budget, provide opportunity to bring on some of those things that we may or may not wish to engage in. Make sense? Or at least revenue generating model helps support what's already ongoing. Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one more question about a capital item PR 14. On the permanent beach shade structure. I'm just, in brackets, it says sunshade sales. Can you just tell me what that means? And can you tell me what the life expectancy of this shade would be? And down the road, how often are we looking at doing maintenance on that?
Yeah, through your worship. The sunshades are the typical canvas shades that you see now in restaurants and all over the place. Yeah, I did do a little bit of research back on these. There's gonna be a 5-year replacement cost for them. They are in a windy location. However, they're seasonal. They come down seasonal. But we'd have to definitely have a revolving capital budget for these sunshades. Now, the posts obviously would probably be fine, but the shades themselves will have to be replaced.
Okay,
How much is a shade?
80 grand.
Yeah,
Well,
through-
that would be installation, would it not? Would that include the posts? That'd be the
yeah,
whole
through your
project.
worship, that was the whole project at the
Right.
time. That number was picked. The shades, like, I think that was based on 3 sections of shade. So they're still between like 10 and 15,000 a piece. So for these are for the top quality without going out. We always try to find the high part, and work from there.
Councilor Frost?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought that was a tiki hut with some beverages being served.
That would require a change to our alcohol policy, I think.
Oh,
Maybe
boy.
that's something we should consider. Yeah.
Revenue.
It's getting late.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, my.
Any,
Uh,
anything else under Parks and Rec? Okay, let's move on to facilities. Is there anything there?
Well, the treasurer is finding that. So there's 4 items in facilities for 2026. FA 05 is the public works storage yard. FA 09 is the engineering component of the Port Burwell East Beach washroom expansion. FA 03 and FA 11 are both parking lot rehabilitations, one for the Stratford Public Library and then one for the Marine Museum,
And,
all levy based.
and the 2 parking lots are there, so that way we can procure them together for bidding.
So Starville PL and Museum PL are 2 different things.
Yes.
Yeah, public library, parking lot. Just to confuse you. Thank you very
Right.
much. Okay, is there anything under Deputy Mayor?
Yes, under FAO 5, is there any cost savings? One of the comments in the asking for comments was to move that storage facility closer to the fire hall. I just was curious as to whether that storage yard it's been there forever, has it not, Steve? Like,
Yeah, through your worship, we don't generally utilize this yard for much. We do use it just so we don't have to transport materials back and forth. The original plan for this was to more establish, if you ever go to a Port Burwell baseball game,
Mhm.
they park in that area. So it's to kind of establish and block off an area where we can store our stuff and it's not in the middle of a roadway or the public's utilizing, for a dumping ground. Clean up, it is a urban area. That was the original design on this, and to help hold a little bit of a parking area for the people that do park on the backside of that. As of the ball, I'm not 100% sure of the fire hall, moving it to the fire hall. I wasn't aware of that one.
No, I just to respond to Manager of Public Works' comment. So this would be a yard, I believe it's off the kind of the extension of Homer that, you know, cuts back towards Nova Scotia line. There wouldn't be a significant amount of room if that were shifted over to the fire hall. There really isn't much space there. A lot of it is parking lot, turning radius and whatnot for either vehicles from the volunteer firefighters or for the firefighting apparatuses. And then in the back, there's the donation space for scrap metal, and also there's a soccer pitch back there as well. Aside from the location off of the gravel part of Homer, there really isn't a lot of other space on that parcel or the fire hall parcel for another location in that area. So this really is the main option.
This is supplementary through you, Mr. Mayor, just so this looks like basically, are we just fencing off an area and saying private property so that people aren't
Yeah,
messing around?
Through your worship, we were gonna establish a paved area.
Okay,
We would make it almost like your garden center. We'd have the blocks with the different areas for our material.
Mm.
And yes, we talked about fencing off at least the back property, that butts up to that area there. I forget the house number there. However, that would be about it. We wouldn't completely fence it. We haven't had a need to do that. However, it's just to establish a little bit easier of an area. This has kind of been ongoing since we removed the Port Burwell yard where we used to bring stuff, about establishing some sort of area down there. It does save a lot of time with our machines when we have somewhere to put things. Otherwise, it's all got to come back up here, so.
thank you.
All right. Anything else from anyone on facilities? Which then brings us to planning and development. And
There's nothing significant in planning and development. 2026 would be the second half of the zoning bylaw.
Yep.
And then we have a bit of a reprieve until we're back to OP and then zoning again on rotating 5-year increments.
all right. Have you got change?
Yes, I do. So what we have drafted is that report TR 1424 regarding 2025-2034 capital budget draft be received for information. And that council approve in principle the 2025 to 2034 capital budget presented with the following edits. Reduce funding of PW 107 to 25K. Removal of WW 09. Update FA 02 to be 30K from reserve and 30K from levy. Addition of PW 135 and PW 136 in 2025. Amend PR 02 to remove the playground from the East Beach and replace it with a playground at the Port Burwell Memorial Park. And that staff be directed to report on the status of parkland funds on a semi-annual basis. And that staff be directed to include an item of park shade in the draft 2025 operating budget for consideration.
Okay, that captures it. And of course, that second last one is where, yep, Councillor Chilcott, I'll get right to you. That is where we will, do we need to clarify in there for consideration of the Eden Pavilion?
Yeah, and the other one.
Oh, then the Richmond too? I don't know if we can do both, but still, we can put it in there. Yeah, Councillor Chilcott.
Thank you. Wasn't one of the considerations for shade though, putting in trees as Councillor Emerson had suggested? So there's two different things. There's the pavilion and there's shade trees.
That'd be an
That'd be an operating note.
Yeah, yeah, well, we were gonna move that consideration to the operating budget, right?
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you put park shade in the 2025 operating budget for consideration. Yeah, it's there. Okay.
Oh, I see.
All right.
Okay.
So do you still want
Nope.
this?
Yep, leave that in there.
Do we need to clarify that for which community? I guess is the question.
I suppose, if you wish, we can. I think, I don't know. Do we need to, clarify the inclusion in the operating budget, the idea of park shade, or I hate to use that word, trees. I'd rather use trees.
Park trees, maybe, or?
Park, trees for the parks, or.
Shade trees.
Shade trees, that'll work.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, I think we should determine which area it's to go because, you know,
Or do
things
you
get
want-
missed or forgotten.
You want just for the parks in general, or do you want to specifically direct it to Eden? Because.
The pavilion was for Eden and so is the
And
shade is what we were talking about.
Richmond's got lots of shade trees, but
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, Eden for sure.
Eden for sure, if you want to put it there.
So would I need to speak about the pavilions, about the parkland report, or I'm only speaking about it about the shade trees?
Well, the Parkland report's going to determine whether we can move forward with the pavilion.
Yeah, that would-
So you want to speak to it? on
I would
both
leave it there.
parts?
Yeah. And shade trees,
They're two separate items.
they are two separate items, and they will be addressed as two separate items in the motion.
Which one again?
Well, Richmond's not gonna really need it, but Eden's the one where we don't have any shade. Do you want to just leave it open for parks? Council makes that determination.
Yeah, just a quick comment. Richmond or Eden Park, all the other parks have do have well shaded.
Yes,
Corinth Park, we actually have to remove some trees in the park because they're they're dying.
right.
So I would definitely base it on the one park as the other ones are all well shaded. And I have multiple requests to trim the trees that are already there.
Okay, that
There-
makes it easy.
That makes it easy. Eden.
Okay, you want to read that back?
Okay. So were we okay with all the bullet points of the edits?
Mhm.
That was fine. So then after that, it goes, and that staff be directed to report on the status of parkland funds on a semi-annual basis for consideration of the Eden and Richmond pavilions in 2025.
Yeah, I think that captures what we're after.
And that staff be directed to include an item of shade trees in the draft 2025 operating budget for Eden Park for consideration.
I'm seeing nods. Do we have a mover for that? For the omnibus thing, Counselor Emerson, do we have a second, or Counselor Chilcott? All in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations. Started down the 2025 budget. Okay. We have the confirming bylaw. Mover and seconder for the following, that confirming bylaw 2024-067 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Weisler, Counselor Emerson. All in favor? That is carried. And the adjournment motion. Moved by Counselor Froze. Seconded by Counselor Chilcott. That the council meeting be adjourned at whatever time it is. 9:20. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for joining us this evening.